Welcome to the Driving Net Profit with Zero Emissions show, the show that brings you best practice net zero stories. I'm Barbara, the co-CEO of 100% Renewables, a consultancy that specialises in the development of climate action strategies. And today, I'll be interviewing Briony from Karina. Karina is a community revolving energy fund, which takes donations from people or organisations in the community to drive emissions reduction via a revolving energy fund. Revolving energy funds are a great mechanism to fund climate action strategies. They are a self-sustaining funding mechanism which you start with seed capital that you invest in sustainability projects such as energy efficiency, water conservation, or solar projects, for example. The fund's unique feature is that you return savings from sustainability projects back into the revolving energy fund to finance the next round of investments. In this way, you can spend funds multiple times to drive emissions reduction, resource, and cost savings. But back to my guest today, Briony. Briony is a chemical engineer with a Master of Laws in International Law, and she specialises in renewable energies and future fuels such as hydrogen and biogas to support the transition to a low-carbon future. Briony is the Chair of Corena. Hi, Briony, and welcome to the Driving Net Profit with Zero Emissions show.
Hi, Barbara. Great to be with you.
It's fantastic to have you on the show. Today, we're going to talk about a very special revolving energy fund, being Karina. What is Karina?
Well, Karina is a grassroots volunteer-run organisation that is committed to taking practical climate action. And so the premise of our model is a revolving fund, which our supporters donate to. Mm-hmm. And Karina provides zero interest loans to other not-for-profits and community organisations to help them to take climate action to reduce their own carbon footprint.
Why did you decide to join Karina?
Well, actually, my career was in oil and gas, and in about 2012, I took time out to study, and in the course of that time away from my otherwise reasonably satisfying career, I studied international law, and part of that was studying international climate change law, mm-hmm. or environmental law, actually. And I just was converted just like that, and I kind of realised how slow I was to wake up to the urgency of all of us taking climate action. And that was the start of transitioning my own career out of fossil fuels and into renewables. And Karina, I suppose the reason for joining Karina was twofold. And, one is that I absolutely believe in the cause and the impact that Karina demonstrates that individuals can make. Mm-hmm. And the other is that it was an opportunity to use my professional skills in an organisation that I feel far more aligned with.
That's pretty similar to my own story. Thinking back to years and years ago, I also came from a very different background in risk management and IT, and I also felt that I need to follow my heart, and I saw the urgency of climate change, and that's why I really needed to change my career and go into sustainability and climate change. So very similar story to you. So you mentioned previously what Karina is funding sustainability projects in the community. So how does it work? How do you get donors to provide funds?
Essentially, we accept donations from anybody, any individual that would like to take action, but perhaps doesn't have the means to, install solar or buy an electric vehicle or do something to reduce their own carbon footprint. So they can donate to Karina's revolving fund, mm-hmm. and we use those donations to provide interest-free loans to other organisations, mm-hmm. And we enable organisations to, say, install solar or implement energy efficiency projects, to get off fossil gas or to convert from traditional combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles, all in order to reduce their own carbon footprint. The organisations that we lend to, they repay the loan, which is interest-free, which means that it's a lot easier for the organisation to service the loan. But importantly, they pay Karina back using the savings from their installation. So they're better off from the start, but they are able to take climate action. And when they repay the loan, we then use those funds to support another project and provide another loan.
And this way, the fund just keeps on going, funding additional sustainability projects. That's amazing. So what kind of organizations can make use of the funds? How do you apply to get funding from Karina?
Well, we provide to quite a range of organisations. Quite often and predominantly it's other not-for-profits that perhaps are really focused on their own cause and don't have a lot of spare cash, don't have an easy access to the funding to take climate action. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a not-for-profit organisation. We look at primarily what service the organisation is providing the community, and organisations can apply to Karina on our website, and we go through a process of assessing, what their needs are, what project or what installation might benefit the organisation, and just work through the technical aspects of the project with them.
So you provide additional guidance. That's great.
Yeah, it's actually really important because Karina don't have any affiliation with, say, solar installers or anything like that, but it's important to us that the money that people donate to Karina is used well, and is providing a really reliable, technically appropriate solution for the organisation we're lending to. So we do provide a lot of technical support in the process.
Can you talk me through an example of where such a community organisation approached you and how you helped them and what the benefits were?
Yes. Oh, well, I'll tell you a story about some of the community centres that we've helped. A few years ago, a community centre in far north Queensland approached us for a loan, and they provide a really important service to the community, simply providing a place for people to meet, socialise, and access services that community centres provide. And so we worked with that particular community centre to provide a solar installation, and through word of mouth, they mentioned the installation to a community centre just down the coast. And so in quick succession, 2 more community centres in Queensland approached us for solar installations. And essentially they weren't able to fund the installation without Karina's help because they just don't have that kind of cash flow to enable them to take out a loan.
Yes.
And so the power of the loan is also that we make sure that the organisation is better off from the start and they're able to pay the loan back so that they receive the benefits, but they're also able to take action that they otherwise wouldn't.
Okay. So you loan the money, the organisation then sources the solar installers themselves, or do you provide help with that as well?
Typically, we ask an organisation to seek 2 or 3 quotes for an installation, and I'm talking specifically about solar installations here. Energy efficiency is an example where we might help fund an audit so that an organisation can understand where they can improve their energy efficiency. But for a solar installation, we would ask them to seek a few quotes because they often know who's available in their local community to provide solar installations. And then we have a couple of technical advisors within Karina who will help to work through the quotes, work through the specifications, and make sure that the proposed installation suits their energy needs. So we look back at an organisation's energy bills over the course of a year and see how it changes, and make sure that they're getting a system that does meet their needs.
And so then the organisation goes ahead and puts the solar panels on the roof, and those solar panels are generating renewable electricity. How do they know what the savings are so they can go and flow back into the Karina fund? How does that work?
Well, when we help provide technical support to specify the solar installation, we look at the organisation's energy bills, and we look at how much energy they've used over the course of a year. And as you can imagine, in a place like Queensland, the summer load is quite different to the winter load, which is the case, of course, all around Australia. And so we look at their average savings over the course of a year for the size of the installation that is proposed. And we take quite a conservative approach to setting the loan repayments so that we're sure that the organisation will receive the benefit of a reduced energy bill, right from the installation, and they're able to meet the loan repayments and still receive some of those benefits. And of course, for each organisation, the really different and significant benefits come when they've repaid the Karina loan and they have an installation that reduces their power bill to just a fraction of what it was before they had the installation.
That's right. Once the loan is paid off, it's free electricity generation from the panels that hopefully have a life of 25 years.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Because funds that are being spent and the savings are being reinvested back into the funds can be spent multiple times. Have you any indication of just the multiplication effect that a donation to Karina will achieve in terms of emission reduction in the community?
Yeah, we do. So just a couple of, general figures. I think we've received a little over $400,000 in donations from individuals over the course of Karina's life.
Yeah.
But we have loaned over $800,000 in loans to organisations. So the reason for the difference is just that people have donated once, but once that loan has been repaid, the money's gone back out to fund a new installation, and it really is a snowball effect. So each $100 of investment or donation provides more than $100 worth of loan support for organisations. We have a really nifty little graphic on the Karina website that just shows the impact of a donation to each of the projects that we have funded over the course of Karina's life. And so if a person donated to any one of those projects, they can have a look and see what the multiplying value of their donation is today.
That is great. So you mentioned in terms of projects that you would fund, say, for instance, solar projects or energy efficiency projects or energy audits, electric vehicles. Any other initiatives that you would fund as well?
Yes, we've actually, over the course of the last year, we've really taken a look at what Karina does and what we're trying to achieve. And really what we're trying to achieve is tangible climate action where it otherwise might not happen. And so, as everyone's aware, solar is thankfully becoming far more typical in lots of Australia and in states like South Australia and Tasmania and the ACT. We've got a really high penetration of renewables. So there's less need for that gap to be filled, notwithstanding that some organisations still do need our help because they might not otherwise, as individual organisations, be able to take action. But we recognise that solar is a little more mainstream than it was 8 years ago when Karina started. And so we've started to work on projects like helping organisations get off fossil gas.
Yeah.
You'll recall that over the last few years, in particular, gas has been explained as the transition fuel, which is, an improvement on coal, but not when it sits next to renewables, right? So to help organisations get off gas and onto renewables and onto a green electricity grid is now an important next step for climate action.
And it's so much easier to make electricity renewable as opposed to gas.
It is. We are actually looking at a renewable gas project because there are obviously parts of the community, like dairies, that do produce gas that would otherwise be vented, which has a far more negative climate impact than burning that gas. So that's, a small example of another avenue that we're progressing. But also, it's really disappointing how slow the uptake of electric vehicles is in Australia. particularly when we have such potential to transition to a green grid. So we are also really focused on helping to push the move towards electric vehicles and to get off combustion vehicles in Australia.
Have you any sense of the kind of emissions reduction you have achieved with the existence of Karina?
Yes, I'd have to have a look at our website. But I can tell you that we have, through the installations that we have funded in our 8 years, we have helped to generate over 1,800 megawatt hours of renewable electricity. And as you can imagine, all of those installations that we funded, say 5 or 8 years ago, are still generating. So that's an exponential curve of renewable generation that we've funded. And with each new project, the number of kilowatts of solar installed is just increasing, and it really is a very powerful model, because the other thing that's happening, as you can imagine, is that as people donate, there's more money to donate, and there are more loan repayments returning to the fund. So the pool of money that we can provide loans to new organisations with is also growing at quite a rate of knots.
That's great. So have you noticed that more people are now donating as opposed to, say, for instance, 8 years ago?
Yes. I think in part, you can imagine with the very first project that we had, it was a slow process to raise the money for that one project. But I think now, having increased awareness, a greater, a larger supporter base, and also a quicker turnover of projects that is enabled by both supporter enthusiasm and support and the returning of loaned funds to the organisation, it is a really powerful snowball effect. So people do understandably want to see the impact of their donation, and if we can fund projects quickly and move on to the next project and install more renewable energy, then that's really powerful, and it is motivating for all of us, I think.
Definitely. It results in tangible climate action.
Yes, that's right.
How can people get involved?
Well, people can get involved in a number of ways, and we'd love them to take up whatever option works. So certainly anyone can donate. And, as I said, you can also use the tools that we have on the website to track the impact of your donation. And that's a really powerful direct support to Karina. We can also always do with volunteer support. So we are a volunteer-run organisation, and we're always looking for new projects as well. So volunteers can also help in a number of different ways. Somebody might be really good at social media, and they might be able to help us with their time to promote projects or promote Karina's cause, or they might be really well entrenched in their own local community and might be aware of organisations that really could benefit from Karina's help. And so to help put us in touch with organisations that could do with help to install a solar installation or to get off gas or to purchase an electric vehicle, that's also really powerful and a direct help to us.
Is there a role for local governments that they can play?
Yeah, there is. And I think it's a really powerful role. So local governments can take action also in a number of ways. They can identify organisations within their community that perhaps are housed in council buildings, and they can facilitate an installation, even just by putting us in touch with them and approving an installation on one of their council buildings. But also they can set up their own revolving fund. And so if a council were to adopt a similar model to what Karina has, they would be able to provide interest-free loans both to their own residents and organisations within their community, and really make a difference to progressing their own communities to increase renewables penetration. And we're not at all protective of the way that our model works or how we operate. We would love to share that with anyone who is interested in establishing their own revolving fund.
I'd also like to point our listeners to the blog post that we wrote about revolving energy funds as also a tool that councils can use. So that's a perfect tie-in, a revolving energy fund potentially for council itself, but also perhaps for the community. It was fantastic to hear about Karina and the amazing achievements that you've made in the past 8 years. I think it's certainly going to grow in popularity because every dollar that you put into Karina is just going to have a multiplier effect in terms of emission reduction in the community. It's tangible, it's reducing our emissions, and it's making sense financially. So how can people contact you?
Well, they can certainly head to our website, and there are a number of options there. So there is a sign up for our e-news, so they can start to hear more about what we're doing month to month. And there are a number of social media avenues that they can follow us on. But to get in direct contact, they can send an email to the link on our website, which is our office at karinafund.org.au. Or equally, they can email me. I'd love to hear from anyone who would like to start a conversation and know how they can get directly involved. And my email address is Briony, BRIONY, at karinafund, CORENAFUND.org.au.
Great, and we'll put those contact details in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Briony. That was an amazing interview. Loved hearing about Karina and the achievements you've made. It was great.
Love to talk to you about it anytime.
Thanks,
Thanks for having me, Barbara.
Thank you.
Cheers.